Alright, let's get one thing out of the way. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a masterpiece. We all know it. The internet's been screaming about it since 2018. But this isn't going to be your typical video about how great the details on Arthur's ass cheeks are, or how wonderful of a villain Dutch van der Linde is.
I had a goddamn plan!
No. Truth is, I know absolutely nothing about game development. I'm your average guy. I don't know anything about objectivity in art or video games or anything like that. I just want to talk about what Red Dead 2 meant to me, the various experiences that I had playing it, how it helped me through the hardest time of my life, and why it took me over 6 months to complete the game. Alright, we getting started on some Red Dead 2. Tell me this ain't a rare hard R dub.
Yeah, it is.
Alright, what's going on with the story? What's going on with these loading screens, bro? So in that clip, you can see I'm excited to start playing the game. By this time, I had been gaming regularly. I knocked a lot of major titles off my backlog, like The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, practically every Far Cry, etc. Red Dead was one of the few major titles I still had left to go, and I was on call with my buddy Patrick, whose voice you can hear in the clip. In case you love his voice, don't worry, you'll get to hear his opinions on the game as well. Not for any reason other than that his fat ass wanted to be included in something. Bear with me here for the editing as well. Not only is it my first time doing a project like this, but I'm doing it all for mobile, making my editing options pretty limited. Anyways, back on track. I played some Red Dead for the first time that night. Why does that matter, you may ask? Well, after grinding on the game for 12 hours straight, from the time I got home from work at around 8 all the way until my family had church the next morning at 9. All I did was play Red Dead 2. I made some pretty decent progress on the game, made it all the way up to Chapter 3. I was leaving for summer camp in 2 days and I wanted to finish my first ever playthrough of the game before I went. Well, lucky me. My family goes to church in the morning. We were at church like every other Sunday. Something told me I should have stayed home that day. I didn't know why, but something told me something bad was going to happen. Maybe I could have prevented it had I just asked the father figure that caused my depression, anxiety, and social awkwardness to stay home that morning. But lo and behold, I'm at church. A friend of mine that I considered pretty close at the time gave me a call asking if I was alright. I reassured her I was okay and that I was in church, and I asked her why she was calling so early and why she interrupted my Sunday school class. Instead of answering like a decent human being, she hung up the phone and texted me to give her a second. Then I saw the text from my aunt. My friend says there's a house fire on your street. Your dad needs to drive home and see what's going on. I didn't even bother holding on to my prayers or hopes that it wasn't my house or that the damage wasn't that bad. By this point in my life, I'd already been fucked over with too many things to where I felt let down by God, time and time again. Too many relationship fuck-ups, too many evictions, and too much to even get started with my dad. And I was right. My house had been damaged, but not lost. To me and the rest of the family, it seemed we could have the ash cleaned out and move back into Mother's. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy. My dad had already owed the landlord of this house over $2,000 in rent from paying for things like going out to eat weekly and unnecessary subscriptions, rather than focusing on his bills. We'd have been evicted regardless if it weren't for the fire. And because of that reason, I suppose things actually worked out better for us. You'll see what I mean in just a second. First, let me introduce you all to our sponsor for today's video.
I got some jelly beans. You like jelly beans?
Alright, let's get into it. I know I said this was all about me, blah blah blah, but you can't make a Red Dead 2 video without explaining what makes the game so great. One of the most striking aspects of Red Dead Redemption 2 is how it immerses you in the concept of morality, and no character embodies that theme more than Dutch van der Linde himself. Dutch is corrupted by the ideals of greed and paranoia. At first, he comes across as someone with a vision, a dream of freedom and a better life for his family. But as the story unfolds, the cracks in his character begin to show, and you're forced to question not only his motives, but your own loyalty to him as Arthur Morgan. Dutch constantly talks about the plan, about how every sacrifice, every questionable act is for the greater good. It's easy to get swept up in his vision at first, just like Arthur does. You rob from trains, steal from the rich, and defend the gang, believing that maybe, just maybe, it'll be worth it in the end. But as Dutch starts making more reckless decisions and his moral compass spins out of control, you start to see the truth. Dutch isn't a savior. He's a man blinded by his own ego, willing to drag everyone down with him for just one last job where no one is going to die this time, that somehow goes wrong anyways. The genius of this game is how it forces you to confront this shift. As Arthur, you're caught in the middle of Dutch's unraveling. You see the pain and suffering his choices cause, whether it's abandoning John for the dead, manipulating others like Molly and Hosea, or trusting the snake that is Micah Bell. And yet, there's still this part of you that wants to believe in him, that hopes he'll turn it around, because that's how deeply the game pulls you into Arthur's perspective. What makes it even more impactful is how Dutch's compass contrasts to Arthur's own moral journey. While Dutch doubles down on his delusions, Arthur starts to question everything. The gang, his loyalty, and even himself, therefore leading him to an ultimate redemption as a person. And then of course there's Arthur's death, a moment so gut-wrenching and unforgettable that it stands as one of the most impactful across all of gaming. After hours spent watching Arthur grow, change, and reflect on his life, his final moments hit harder than any shootout or betrayal. Whether you choose to fight for John's escape or go after the money, the result is the same. Arthur, broken and dying from tuberculosis, meets his end under the sunrise or the shadow of betrayal. But it's not just the fact that he dies, it's how he dies. Arthur's death isn't just the end of a character, it's the culmination of his journey towards redemption. He dies knowing he's made peace with his actions, finally doing something selfless to ensure a better future for the people he cares about. It's raw, emotional, and a masterclass in storytelling, leaving a void that lingers long after the credits roll. It's the only moment I know across pop culture that no movie, TV show, play, musical, or any other form of media could replicate. God of War or The Last of Us is easy to turn into a TV show. But Red Dead isn't just about the characters, or the story, or the world, or the gameplay. Instead, it takes all of those elements and gives you something only a gamer can experience. Arthur's death is the only pop culture moment I know that has made grown men cry on TV. No other game or form of media could achieve this. And yeah, we all talk about Arthur's story in this game, but what about John's? I feel it goes unlooked with it being the epilogue and not the main story of the game. But the fact that Rockstar managed to pull off John's character arc with him getting revenge on Arthur's murderer and proposing to his wife with Arthur's ring after Arthur saved John's life and his family's, all without messing up the legacy of Red Dead 1. The game that this is a prequel to, mind you. That says that Rockstar is nothing short of brilliant. Again, fellas, I assure you, no other form of media could pull this type of emotion off.
Good evening, this is Patrick from the Patrick Channel, and I'm here to give my piece. What does Red Dead mean to me? That's the question that rings throughout my mind, all our minds, undoubtedly. Red Dead Redemption 2, simply put, is a masterpiece, but as we've already covered, that isn't the point of discussion here. Red Dead's story brings you through an emotional roller coaster regarding a gang of outlaws who aren't wanted anymore. Now, as much as I'd like to do an in-depth analysis of that one picture of Arthur's ass cheeks, we've already made it clear that that's coming in the next video. Please stay tuned for that. The first time I played Red Dead 2 was around 2020. The game was already 2 years old, and I had already watched full playthroughs of the story, but when I finally played the game, I was probably 10 or 11 years old. Much death occurs throughout the story, as most of you should know by now, but none of it really affected me. There were, however, 3 deaths that brought my 11-year-old self to tears. Being a fat ass and doing nothing but play video games and eat really gets you attached to the characters. The deaths of Hosea Matthews, Arthur Morgan, and, well, my horse. Those were the ones that got me. I was in tears the first few times I had seen them die. You know, there by myself, not just looking through a screen of some guy playing the game. Simply put, I was Arthur Morgan and I was Hosea Matthews. I was in the shoes of those characters finally, and I was able to develop complex internal connections with them. The game is so much more than a dumb Western. It's a telling of a story that really takes you through the motions. Believe it or not, I've seen grown men cry at the death of Arthur Morgan. So imagine me being 11, a little child. I don't ever cry over video game deaths, obviously. I'm nearly 15 years old now. And I didn't really back then either. It shows how talented Rockstar was in their craft, and it definitely shows how they can put out a wonderful AAA game, unlike that piece of crap known as Grand Theft Auto Online. That right there, that's what Red Dead means to me. And I'm going to sign off here and turn it back to Robert. Thanks for having me, and come check me out if you're into Resident Evil content. Thank you.
Hey, Dutch, what can I help you with? Will you be using your mobile app today?
I'll have McGriddle, a Big Mac,
Alright, anything else?
a plan, Arthur. Nobody's gonna die this time. This is the last bank job. That is the plan.
Get the fuck out of my store, Dutch.
Sholo me a few favors. Throw Spicy McCrispy in there for me, eh, Arthur?
I kid you not, the way I completed the game is the funniest shit ever. We thought after the house first burned down, we'd never get anything back from out of it, and we'd be starting over completely. Luckily, that wasn't at all the case. One day, my dad picks me up from work. It's raining and dark outside, and he hands me a flashlight.
It's gonna be dark down there. You'll need a flashlight.
All right, Stairbreaker. Let's do this. Let that shit out of that house.
Yeah, long story short, we broke into the house to steal our stuff out before the landlord could sell any of it. I got back into Red Dead 2 immediately and grinded it non-stop from the beginning of Chapter 3 all the way to the end of Chapter 5. Then, while I'm in the middle of a Chapter 6 mission, my dad walks in with me, holding a geek bar in my hand. He takes my phone for 2 months and grounds me for 1. Felt like everything was stopping me from finishing this game. But then I get the PS5 back, finish it up, and feel as though not only the game is complete, but a chapter of my life as well. I'd gone through so much sorrow and anxiety throughout the past few months. I was literally homeless because of this house fire, and Arthur Morgan's story and character arc had a major impact on the way I acted as a person, and comforted me throughout this time. Red Dead is so much more than just shooting guys like in Grand Theft Auto. It's a masterclass of storytelling. I've gone over that already, and so has just about every other YouTuber on planet Earth. So I'm not going to bore you with doing it again. But I truly feel as though nothing can make me feel the way Red Dead does. I've played other games and loved them, but Red Dead 2 came out at just the right time in my life to guide me on my own path of redemption, just like Arthur Morgan. As after I finished the game, I tried to keep my ideals towards God a lot more. And it was all thanks to Rockstar and Arthur Morgan. Again, I know this isn't the best edited video, and I'm definitely not a professional of any sorts, but I hope those watching enjoyed. I had fun making it and implementing my own humor and such into it, as well as trying out something new for my channel. I'm also uploading this on 2 different channels, my main one, Game World Master, and an old channel I had a while back, XX Minor Lasso. That's to compare the analytics on both channels, of course. If you're watching on XX Minor Lasso, feel free to check out the main channel, which the link to will be in the description. And if you're watching on the main channel, feel free to check out my gaming content. I have a Let's Play on Red Dead 2 in progress that'll be finished soon enough. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and maybe even leave a comment letting me know if you want to see more reviews like this with the humor and such. Let me know what I can do to improve both the content and the channel. Obviously, Red Dead 2 is the sequel/prequel. There are 2 other games in this franchise that I have yet to play, and only know that John dies in Red Dead 1. I do plan to play both games on the channel here and cover my thoughts on those as well. I'm also curious to see how they'll pick up the story in Red Dead 3 after John's death, but I like my fan theory the best. Have a look.
I got some jelly beans. You like jelly beans?